This is the Ford Mustang Mach-e long-range all-wheel drive. Almost 4 years after its debut, it is still worth buying this car. That's what I'm going to focus on today by testing range, consumption, acceleration, cabin noise, and charging. But before we do that, I just want to welcome you to It's Only Electric. This is the channel where we only test fully electric cars. Let's start with some basic facts. This is a mid-size SUV or CUV measuring 4.7 meters with a wheelbase of 2.9. Weighs 2.1 tons. All-wheel drive, so 2 motors, combined output 351 horsepower or 680 newton meters of torque. You should be able to do 0 to 100 in 5.1 seconds. We're gonna test that with a top speed of 180 kilometers per hour. This is where you find the charge port with fast charging with up to 150 kilowatts. 10 to 80% should take 36 minutes. We're gonna test that too. Is that really the case? When it comes to home charging, 11 kilowatts, 3-phase support. It has a updated battery pack with a gross capacity of 99 kilowatt hours and a net capacity of 91. It's a NMC pack, you know the drill, charge it to 80%. Running on a non-staggered wheel setup, 19-inch wheels, 225/55 all around, Continental Premium Contact 6. I think that was all the important information. It's time to start the range and consumption test. I have been driving for almost 25 kilometers. This is the first stretch of the range and consumption test. Average consumption until now, 16 flat kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. That's good. Conditions, it says 28 degrees. It is not, it's showing a bit too high of a temperature. It's 26 degrees Celsius outside. Perfect conditions, no wind, totally dry roads. I mean, this will be the best possible consumption with this car. No doubt about that. The range test I'm doing is always the same stretch of roads with an average speed of 93 kilometers per hour, speeds between 50 all the way up to 110 kilometers per hour. The length of the track is 80 kilometers, so that gives you a good estimate and understanding of how the consumption is, and it's always comparable with all my other tests I have done. I stick to a set of rules. Cabin set to 20 degrees and auto all the time. I always stick to the speed limits, and I always drive in eco mode, drive mode if available. And this one, the Mach-e, doesn't have anything called eco. It has 3 down modes: whisper, active, and untamed. Whisper is the most calm one and most energy efficient one available, so I'm driving on whisper. But when it comes to the consumption, 95% is spent on driving, 2% on accessories, and 2% on climate, and 1% at exterior temperature. I guess that's the delta between the interior and the exterior. I'm not sure, because climate is something else. Not sure what that is, if it's cooling the battery pack or heating it. Not sure. Probably not heating it, I mean it's too hot outside. When it comes to the comfort and noise, this is a silent car. I think partly due to the non-existing glass roof. This one doesn't have that. So, as you know, panoramic glass or glass in general does reflect and replicate sound waves. So without glass roof, you will have more textile picking up the noise, the sound waves, making the cabin a bit more silent. So it feels fairly silent, but it's still running on small tires, 19-inch wheels, not that wide, 225s. Doesn't have any double pane windows. At the front, it's a insulated glass with heating built in. So fairly silent. I think it's more silent than a Model Y, but let's see about that. I will report the cabin noise after the range test. One thing that I have noticed is that a Mach-e tends to do some wind noise around the A-pillar, and it starts around 75 kilometers per hour and gets more prominent the faster you drive, of course, but around 100 or 110 kilometers per hour you really hear the A-pillar wind noise. I don't know if it's something with this car, I'm not sure, but shouldn't be. So maybe it's a general thing with the Mach-es. Do you know? Let me know in the comments below. The other aspect of comfort is the driving position, and I have plenty of room here in the front, especially for my legs. I'm able to spread them a bit more and rest my right leg at the accelerator. I have a lot of room for my knee, which makes long trips more comfortable. That's a really good feature, and that's mostly due to the lower midsection here. The central compartment is very low to the floor and gives me a lot of space for my knee, so that's nice. One thing that I don't like is the seat. This is not the sport seats. I tried those in the GT almost a year ago. They are too flat. Both the seat and the backrest doesn't give me that support that I want. Doesn't have any sportiness at all. They are too flat, too unsupportive, and not the best seats for long travel. Hitting the halfway, 40 kilometers past, average consumption 15.0 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Strangely, it doesn't give me the decimals. It has a decimal, but it always says 0. So I have seen 17, 16, and now 15. So the consumption meter is not that accurate, unfortunately. So I will try to calculate it depending on the percentage of battery drain instead. But 15 flat, probably a bit higher. That's a very good consumption. I mean, if I can keep this for the whole trip, the whole consumption test, this will be a really exciting result. One of the best, actually. Something that I actually forgot after driving the GT for a while ago, this is a inspiring car to drive. It's really, for being electric, a driver's car. I mean, this is not the GT, it's the all-wheel drive, but 351 horsepower, 680 newton meters of torque. That's good. Plenty of power, but especially I think the feel to the steering wheel and the suspension really helps out here. It really creates kind of a dynamic feel to the car. Doesn't feel that big, doesn't feel that heavy. I mean, despite the weight of 2.1 tons, still think it's a really fun car to drive. I must say that this is one of the most exciting cars available. So if you are after a car that's nice to drive, gives you that extra touch of feeling, this may be a good alternative for you. Okay, so let's summarize the final range and consumption. It ended up at 16.4 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. That's impressive and equals to 555 kilometers of a total range for the full battery pack. That's actually 5 kilometers more than the stated WLTP range of 550 kilometers, so 101% of the stated range. I think that's the first time I actually beat the WLTP numbers. But keep in mind that this was in perfect conditions. I mean, 26 degrees outside, totally dry roads, great conditions. So don't expect more. But 555 kilometers, that's really good. I mean, that's 16.4, that's MEB platform numbers, Volkswagen platform numbers. they tend to have a low consumption. It's not at Tesla level, really, but not far from actually. So one of the more efficient cars I have tested, and this is the four-wheel drive version. So imagine if you go for the RVD, you will be able to crank out more range, higher efficiency, lower consumption. Let's move on to the acceleration test. First drag session, state of charge 87%, dry mode untamed active. 26 degrees outside, let's go.
Zero to 60 miles per hour time 5.16 seconds. 0 to 100 kilometers per hour time 5.43 seconds.
Okay, so 5.4, 0 to 100, 5.16, 0 to 60 miles per hour. Let's do another attempt. State of charge, 87%. Go.
Zero to 60 miles per hour time 5.26 seconds. 0 to 100 kilometers per hour time 5.56 seconds.
26 degrees outside, dry roads. Go.
Zero to 60 miles per hour time 5.19 seconds. 0 to 100 kilometers per hour time 5.48 seconds.
So I did a couple of acceleration runs, best possible time 5.43 seconds, 0 to 100 kilometers per hour. That's at a state of charge of 89%. 0 to 60 miles per hour, 5.16 seconds. Stated time from Ford is 5.1. I'm really not sure if that's on a 1 foot rollout. I don't think so. I know that the GT model has 1 foot rollout. Don't think the all-wheel drive has it. So I don't know, maybe the state of charge of 89% isn't enough to score that maximum performance when it comes to 0 to 100. So 0.3 seconds from the stated time. The next thing is the cabin noise. And I measure cabin noise in different speeds, 50, 70, 90, and 110 kilometers per hour. And this is the final result. Compared to other cars in the segment, it is very close to the Nissan Ariya and the Hyundai Ioniq 5. So in the same ballpark as those cars. More silent than the Tesla Model Y, long range and performance. So, I mean, as expected, I would say. Of course, the glass roof, the missing glass roof will compensate for some of the noise, so we'll take it away. There is no double paned windows, but still a fairly good insulated car. Tires, 225s, so not that much of a tire noise. But as I stated in the video, there is actually a lot of noise coming from the two A-pillars, over like 80 kilometers per hour. So bit of a design issue, I guess. Anyway, I have extensively tested Ford Blue Cruise. It's available here in Europe now. That's the drive assist system where you actually don't need to put your hands or hold the steering wheel at all. You can drive on highways without holding the steering wheel. Really convenient feature. I have done another video, a separate video about testing just that. I'll put the link up here, so don't miss that one. Let's move on to the charging, and this is probably the most exciting part for you guys. Claimed top speed from Ford is 150 kilowatts. I have had a hard time to find the exact charge time. There is two stated times from Ford on their Swedish official website. One says 45 minutes for 10 to 80%. One says 38 minutes. I trust the one saying 38 minutes. So I charged it 10 to 80%, and when it comes to preconditioning or conditioning of the battery for optimizing the charge curve, this car has it, but the only way to activate it is by using the native navigation and navigate to a fast charger. There is no way to activate it manually, so that's a function I really miss. Another thing that I think is needed, you will see that here, is that the charge information on the screen is really lacking. You can see the percentage and you can see when it plans to be ready for 80% state of charge. Nothing else. No charge speeds, no voltage, no kilowatts, no amperage, nothing. You need to trust the charger for that information. And this is the final charge curve. I charge it from 10 to 80%. The total charge time took 40 minutes and 38 seconds. So in between the old 45 time and 38 minutes, closer to 38 minutes, so just about 40 minutes for that charge curve. Seems like it had a bit of a trouble to handle the heat of the charging after a while, because it started off really good and hit a peak speed at 151 kilowatts at 16%. But it starts tapering really quick. I mean, already at 19-20%, it was down to 108 to 107 kilowatts, as you see here at the charge curve. And the final charge speed at 80% was 77 kilowatts. After that, it starts tapering a lot, even more. Average charge speed during the whole session, 94 kilowatts. I don't know, I'm not super impressed. It's not a bad charge curve, but I think 107, 108 kilowatts is a bit too low for such a big battery pack. Should be a bit higher and help us to reduce the total charge time. So let me revisit my initial question. Almost 4 years after its debut, it is still worth buying this car? That's what I'm going to focus on today. One big reminder is the drivability. I mean, the drive feel to the Mach-e. It's really fun to drive. It's really engaging. And I did forget that after driving the GT. You have such a good contact with the road. The steering wheel is so direct and you feel the road in it. It's really fun to drive, and it's easy to utilize the power and use it in a fun way. It's really fun to drive, and you somehow don't feel all the weight, all the 2.1 tons. It doesn't feel that heavy actually compared to other EVs. So if you're after a driver's machine as an EV, this can be one of the best alternatives on the market currently. I mean, the car has been evolving since 2020. It's not the same car. I mean, it has a bigger battery pack, better software, new functionality, better charge curve than before. So a lot has happened since the introduction back in 2020. And another very positive thing is that it is efficient. I mean, as you saw, the consumption is low, the efficiency is high on this car, and you can crank out plenty of range out of this big battery pack. I mean, 91 kilowatt hours of a net capacity, that's good for this size of a car. So the Mach-e is still fighting against its rivals in the same segment. At least when you look at kind of a price performance curve, I still think it delivers decent range, good efficiency for the money. And on top of that, it's very fun to drive. And when it comes to the design, the looks, I think it still holds up. It doesn't look old, it doesn't look boring. It's still an engaging car to look at. And I think a lot of people I have talked with still like the design of it and think it's an exciting car to look at. That's it for today. I hope this video gave you some good information about the Ford Mach-e and that it comes in handy. As I always say, like, subscribe and engage. Let the comments flow, ask me questions, let us have good discussions about the Mach-e or EVs in general. And most importantly, stay electric. Thank you for watching. Speak to you soon.